introduce Gloria, and then Gloria will take over from there. So a little bit of Gloria. Gloria is a professional engineer and a university instructor. She actually teaches in probably 5 educational institutes at this time. She's also a champion of equity, diversity, and inclusion. Before switching to academia, Gloria worked in oil and gas managing petroleum companies for over 15 years. Today Gloria works in 5 universities, teaching engineering and project management, and she is the founder of WES, the Women in Engineering Summit. Gloria was born in Barranquilla, where I am at this minute, enjoying the sun and the heat. And now she lives in Edmonton in the freezing cold in Canada with her husband and their 3 children. So with that, I'm just going to, before I turn it over to you, Gloria, I am going to ask of the attendees if you could log into menti.com, and the code is the one that shows up in there, 73324622. We have our first question for Gloria's layoff survivor syndrome, and then we will use the same Mentimeter with the same code to ask for your feedback at the end. So if you can take the time to, I thought that I had the QR code. Yes, there is the QR code, so it makes it easier. Please with your phone over the QR code, and then you should be directed to the page. In any case, the Menti code is 73324622. And the question at this point in time is to start polling session. Are you worried at all about losing your job in the next few months? Are you worried at all about losing your job in the next few months? With that, I'll turn it over to Gloria to walk us through it, and I will monitor the event.
And you'll tell us the results?
Gloria?
And you'll tell us the results?
I will tell you the results. So the floor is yours. I'm going to do some things in the background in here. Take it over.
Thank you very much, Marta, and thank you very much, Sarah and Amu, for supporting this event. And welcome to all the audience. There's 25 of you, I think, right now. That is perfect. The more we share this message, the better or the happier we will be, because we live in a very interesting province with lots of work, lots of jobs, lots of oil, lots of petroleum projects, and we are, I guess, victims of the economic ups and downs. So this happens sometimes. Every few years, Alberta goes through another collapse in the price of the oil, and the Albertans have to accommodate to the economic situation. But we don't pay enough attention to this syndrome. Overcome layoff survivor syndrome is one of those things that is kind of like mental health, right? We don't talk about mental health. And it's a common thing. We should be paying more attention to our mental health, the same way we take care of our physical health. Mental health is very important. And what happens during layoffs is some people get fired, some people stay. The people that get fired, we understand their pain. All of you know somebody that's lost their job, and you know how much they have suffered. You know that they lose hope. And also they lose, on top of all the consequences of losing your job, you don't have money. Eventually you're gonna run through your savings. So we understand their pain. But what happens to the people that stay behind? That's the purpose of this workshop. What happens to the people that stay behind? The ones that keep their jobs, but they see your empty desk, right? The people have left, they're moving on to maybe their next career or to take a vacation. Some people take the chance of taking a vacation when they get laid off. But the people that stay behind, their world is upside down. So that's what we're going to talk about today. It is my honor to be able to share with you some tips, maybe to the managers in the room or to the employees in the room or the contractors in the room, how this affects the workplace, the people that stay behind. A little bit of my background. I used to work in oil and gas, so that was my world. I used to build pipelines, petroleum tanks, electrical substations, switchgear buildings, manifolds, valve manifolds, all the appurtenances of a pipeline project. And it was a fun job as long as we had a high price in oil. So for 16 years, I did this work, and it was so rewarding until we had the collapse of the price of oil back in 2014. Most of you in the audience are maybe too young to realize that in 2014, we had one of the worst economic crises in Alberta. The price of oil collapsed. It was too high to begin with. It was almost $160 a barrel at the beginning of 2014. By the end of that year, the price was $17 a barrel. From $160 to $17. That collapse was massive, massive. And I was already in management. I was a supervisor. So my job was to pick somebody to get laid off, or to cancel projects, or to maybe tell the staff everything is okay, even though I knew it wasn't okay. So I'm a fellow layoff survivor. If you have seen people leave the office because they were laid off and you had to stay behind to pick up the pieces, you know, we are in the same club. So what happens when you work in oil and gas? The price of oil matters. And the happy number, for those of you who don't know anything about oil, the happy number is around $62 a barrel. Around $62 a barrel. And when you start counting how many dollars are you off from 62 to 17, you realize that something has to give. Companies have to get smaller because there's not enough money for the projects, either expansion or maintenance. So this is what happened to Alberta in 2014. 100,000 people were laid off regarding the oil patch world, the industry. 70% of those 100,000 were people in Alberta. Fort McMurray, Edmonton, Calgary, Red Deer, Grand Prairie, all the towns and cities that depend on this business. 30% of those 100,000 people were engineers. This was a huge blow to the industry of engineering because we make lots of money with oil and gas, but when the price is down, we have to pay, right? So that's the impact that one economic collapse in the price of oil can create. That's the tragedy that it can create. 100,000 people at least lost their jobs due to the collapse of the price of Alberta oil, the one that comes from Fort McMurray. We call it Canadian Western. That's the title of the crude oil. That's 100,000 people that had to go find another job, another career, move to another city. What happened to the ones that stayed behind? That's the topic of this workshop. What happened to the people that were still at work? In the office, in the university, at the hotel, at the restaurant, in an oil sand site, the construction site. That is the story that we're going to tell today. The ones that are left behind after the layoff are not thankful. I wish they were, but it's impossible. It's really hard to be happy when you have more work. Because guess who's going to do the work that people that were laid off had pending? The people that stay behind. They have to do the work of those people that left. So at least your work is increasing. If not, it's double or triple of the work that you have to do. What happens to you when your best friend at work gets laid off? The one reason you were happy to go to work, your friend at work, is not there anymore. Now they're scrambling because they need to find a job. How does that affect you in terms of productivity, in terms of your emotions, in terms of your mental health? That is also part of the syndrome. You feel guilty. Guilty. You're supposed to be thankful that you have a job. You're supposed to be thankful that you still have a paycheck to support your family. You're supposed to be thankful that you still get to do the work that you need to get your PNG, right? Or your PGO, Professional Engineer, Professional Geoscientist designation. You're still doing the work that qualifies you to apply for a professional designation. But it is really hard to feel thankful. It's really hard. Never mind the workload that it gets added to you because there's not enough people to do the same work as before. But it's also you feeling that you don't deserve to be at work, feeling that the next layoff is around the corner. See, it's not over. The people that got laid off, at least they're moving on. The person that stays behind is not worried about the next wave of layoffs. So we're going to learn lots about how to overcome that feeling of guilt. Let's start with what the experts say happens to a company when you do this, when you actually do this and you start laying off people. So this is Ben Horowitz. He's an author, wrote a book about layoffs actually. Most companies that go through layoffs are never the same. They don't recover because the trust is broken. They don't recover. You have cleaned up your financial sheet. You laid off, 100 people, 1,000 people, and then you want to go back to business as usual? No, I'm sorry. The trust is no longer there. The people that are in the office that you're still paying are suffering because they know there's another layoff coming, or they have to do more work, or they're depressed because now the office is empty. So the trust is broken. Think about that. How many years will it take to recover the trust? Never. There's always that thought, it's going to happen, it's going to happen, it's going to happen. So you have to manage these very, very well. When we talk about layoffs, I would like to ask you, I don't know if you can put it on the chat or you can just think about it. What is preferable, based on everything I told you? To get laid off with hundreds or thousands of other fellow ex-employees, or to keep your job after a massive layoff in the company? Most of us are going to say, I want to keep my job. I want to have my money. But when you ask the people that actually kept their job and kept their money, is that way of putting it, they're not thankful. In fact, they're not happy at all. So it's almost better, from my opinion. I've been on both sides of the fence. I have survived 4 waves of layoffs at my work when I was working in pipelines. And then I was also chosen for layoff. So I've been on both sides. I have suffered both ways. I did. I suffered just as much when I got laid off, actually laid off. I had a package, but I was given a choice to stay or to go. And after 4 waves of layoffs, trust me, I made a decision to go in 1.5 seconds. You are done. Mentally, you're done with all this ups and downs of who's getting fired. So I'll tell you my story as we go along because we understand what happens to the people that are laid off, but what happens to the survivors? The people that get to stay at work, they see your empty desk and they have to do your leftover work. And if you ask them, after many waves of layoffs that they survived, they would say it's better to get laid off. Yeah. Some of them volunteer, actually. I volunteered. I definitely did. It is fascinating that we don't talk about this topic more often. So, today's presentation, the 3 sections of our agenda, I'm going to show you what the feelings are so that you can recognize the symptoms of survivor guilt. I'm going to show you how to overcome that guilt just enough so that you can continue working, because you still have to be productive. Your boss is expecting you to do even more than before, and you want to be valuable so you don't get picked for the next layoff. And finally, I'm going to show you how to manage your career after or before the next layoff, after that first layoff and before the next one, because you have to be proactive. Please plan this very well so that you can come out winning if you happen to survive a layoff. So those are the 3 topics we're going to address today. Let's talk about the feelings. The feelings of guilt of being a layoff survivor come from military, actually. Military research. Soldiers that survived the war. First World War, Second World War, the Gulf War, Persian Gulf War that the United States was into, Afghanistan War, Canadian soldiers were part of that too. That's a medically sanctioned syndrome. They come back and they survive. Maybe they have injuries or they have no injuries at all. And they're not happy that they survived. They literally wish they could trade places with their friend, which is completely against what their family would think. The family that's welcoming them home because they're alive. But mentally, that's what you go through. So what are the feelings? First, the definition. Layoff Survivor Syndrome, LSS. It refers to the experience of remorse and guilt, even anger and anxiety that you have survived the layoff when your colleague, possibly your best friend in the office or the construction site, didn't. Remorse, guilt, anger, and anxiety. You still have a job, you still have a paycheck, but you're feeling remorse, guilt, anger, and anxiety. That makes almost no sense. But it's a normal thing. It's normal for you to feel a little bit of guilt that your friends were laid off and not you. So why? Why do we feel guilty? Because we think we hurt them. We think it's our fault that the company chose us instead of them. So we think we hurt them somehow. So when one person causes harm or believes is causing harm to another person, the normal emotional response is guilt. Totally natural. Totally natural. In fact, the more guilt you feel, the better human you are, because you're in touch with your emotions and you're protecting your fellow human beings. So guilt is totally normal. Not feeling guilt is actually the unusual thing. That's actually another medical diagnosis. You feel nothing. We have a word for those people that feel nothing. No guilt, no pain. They don't have feelings that are hurt. That's actually a medical condition. Now, the problem is when you have too much guilt. Excess guilt is the problem. That burden that you have to carry with that excess guilt, it hurts your work, your productivity. It hurts your relationship with your family and your friends. It hurts your mental, physical health. I'm sure you know that when you do not express your feelings and you bottle them up, your body eventually gets sick. You're supposed to express your feelings, share your feelings. in a healthy way, obviously. If you feel anger, express your anger, but don't hurt anybody, right? You're supposed to express your emotions. Because if you bottle them up, just hide them and bury them inside of you, eventually your body will get sick. You're gonna have a heart problem, a stomach ulcer, migraines, you're gonna get colds all the time. Something is gonna give, and your body's going to react to try to release that stress in any way it knows how. So it's the excess guilt that is the problem. Not the guilt. Guilt is fine, guilt is normal. You're a good human being. It's the excess guilt that is the problem. So, what can we happen with recognize this? We understand what happens to the laid off people. We know. They feel lost, they feel attacked, their self-esteem is down on the gutter, but it's also their financial safety. Where is the next paycheck going to come from? We understand how they suffer. We totally do. Why do you have a self-esteem problem? It's because we become so connected to our work that we think our job is us. I'm sure some of you agree with this statement. My job is me. So when they take the job away, you have nothing. There's no me. And that is a thing we have to control. Because the world is full of jobs. There's jobs everywhere. You lost this one, but there's another one waiting for you. We understand how these people feel. We do need to manage layoffs a lot better. In Alberta, Edmonton, Calgary, Red Deer, Grand Prairie, Fort McMurray, we are not firing people properly. We don't know how to do it in the most humane way possible. We tend to get secretive. We tend to hide things, lie to the employees. We tend to keep things confidential, even though we know we're going to hurt them. And that creates this culture of secrecy. It really hurts an office when the management is hiding things from the employees, and the employees are asking, am I going to get fired? Am I going to get fired? And they don't say anything. Oh, everything is fine, everything is fine, everything is not fine. The way that we manage layoffs has to be more humane, more supportive. The worst case I ever heard, somebody was picked up and dragged out of the office by security. What was their crime? They were chosen for layoff. The person had done nothing other than be a good employee, and they were picked up by security and taken out. They couldn't say goodbye. They couldn't pick up their personal. They said, no, we'll pick up your personals from your office. That's the worst case I ever heard. A pretty bad one happened actually in Calgary. The person was trying to get into the building, and the swipe card didn't work. They turned it off. They deactivated the swipe card, and the person couldn't get in the office. Their first thought is, maybe I got the wrong card. Maybe the IT people have to upgrade my profile. Nope, they were fired. The company wouldn't even give them a meeting. So eventually, when enough people couldn't get into the office, the conversation began. Oh, you too? Oh, you too? That's a horrible thing. We need to lay off people in a more humane way. Europe, actually, I Googled this. Which countries in Europe and how do they do layoffs? I found an article about Germany. Germany, when they lay off employees, they allow the employees to stay in the office for a few weeks after the firing. Why? Because they told them, we need to reduce costs. We know that your job is important, but we need to cut your job. Stay, finish your projects, and start job hunting. We will pay your salary for the next few weeks so that you can finish the projects with us. You can transfer the responsibility of the projects, and you can start looking for a job. I don't think any company in Alberta has ever done this. Not in Alberta, not in Canada, I don't think. And people can also say goodbye, right? We know that these things are not happening. People are not having their goodbye party. Now, we know their pain. What happens to the layoff survivors? More work, fear of layoffs, and all of that gets added to their stress because they already had the stress from work. You add this stress and you add this stress and you add this stress. And now magically you have more work because people are gone and you have to be scared of the next layoff. Good luck with your stress level, right? Obviously, these survivors report reduced job appreciation. They don't like their job as much anymore. If they loved their job before, they love it a little less, right? And reduced life satisfaction. Their personal life is affected by the survivor status. Why? Because they're fearing the layoffs. Because they think they're going to lose their paycheck in the future. Not now, in the future. And they have more work. If they take away 2 of your team members and you're the lead of the team, you're doing more work. Guaranteed. For this guilt, I told you came from the war. That's how it was first recognized. So losing your job is not the same thing as a war. Not at all. At the war, you actually die. People actually die. I'm just saying that the feelings are similar. Your brain does not understand the difference between a small crisis and a big crisis. I'm gonna let you think about that one. Your brain does not understand the difference between a small crisis and a big crisis. It doesn't. All it knows is crisis. So that's why the feelings are so similar. Even though they're not at risk of dying, they're not being shot at, it's the same feeling. The brain doesn't understand the difference. You're in crisis, and that's all I know. That guilt consumes the survivors. Consumes them. Especially soldiers. Their whole life, they remember that. They never let it go unless they have therapy. The question they're asking is, why me? Right? Why did I die and not my friend? So what happens to your productivity when there's a layoff? Your productivity goes down. Down. I don't care what an amazing employee you are. If they laid off 100 people in your department, and some of them are your friends and some of them are your bosses, you are not the best employee anymore. Your productivity is going to decline. It has to. To be able to do good work, you need your brain awake, your soul awake, you need your commitment awake. And all of those 3 are being affected by the fact that all your friends are gone and you have to do extra work. 74%, according to this Leadership IQ website, they published the results of their survey, 74% of survivors reported that productivity had gone down. That's almost the entire office. Just if there's 100 people in the office, 74 of the 100 said, this is it. I don't think I'm ready to work for a few weeks now or a few days. 25% reported that their productivity was the same. Talk about mental strength, mental toughness. They're able to maintain their level of productivity even with everything that is happening around them. And 1% said it improved. No, these people are not crazy. They're not nuts. They're scared. That 1% is doing more efficient work in the hopes that that protects them from a layoff. None of them are the same as before. For the concept of survivor layoff, please understand the symptoms. Symptoms or feelings of anger. Symptoms or feelings of anxiety. Anxiety is fear of the future. Depression is the fear of the past. So when you're depressed, you're constantly thinking about the past. And when you're anxious, you're constantly thinking about the future. So those feelings are very similar. You're just looking at different parts of your life. Anger, anxiety, guilt, remorse that it should have been you and not them. We know it affects your productivity. We know it affects your work satisfaction. So that's a great quote because mentally speaking, like talking about just the mental state of the workers, the ones that stay behind Now they need therapy, and now they need a vacation, and now they need support because they're dealing with their feelings, they're dealing with more work, they're dealing with the stress of the next layoff, all of that together at the same time. So he says, the minute you do any layoffs, you might as well lay off the whole office, the whole joint, because they're not talking about the mission of the company, they're not talking about the value of the company, the vision, the strategic objectives, expand the market share. They're not talking about any of that. So let's overcome it, because too much of it makes your job worse, makes your family relationships worse, makes your friend relationships worse. It affects your entire being. So this is how you overcome it. I know that you are online and I cannot see your faces, all 25 of you. I cannot see your faces. Please take a piece of paper and a pen, and I need you to write down the following 3 steps. You can take a picture too after I'm done showing all 3. I'm just saying, to start the work, the mental work, it's important that you start writing it down. Our hand is connected to muscles and bones. That motion of writing does something to our brain. It makes the idea more powerful if you're writing it down as you hear it, as opposed to just hearing it. So get a piece of paper. I'll give you a few seconds. Get a pen. If you want to type it, fine, but I'm telling you, writing, there's nothing like writing to engage the brain. Yeah. You can type it. I'm okay with you typing it on your laptop or your phone. Step number 1, to overcome the guilt of being a layoff survivor. Step number 1 is reach out to the people laid off. To you is a mystery how they are doing. And when we don't know something, when there's a gap in our knowledge, we fill it with garbage. That's why you're supposed to be a very good manager of people and give them a lot of information, because when you don't give enough information, the humans in your team are going to make up stuff. They're going to invent things. What do we call that? Rumors, gossip, exaggeration, fantasy. People start inventing things because they don't have the information, so they have to fill those gaps with whatever they think happened. You need to reach out to the people that were laid off. Find out how they are doing. 9 times out of 10, you're going to come out of it going, they're okay. They're okay. Now, 1 out of 10, maybe not so okay. Most people that are laid off eventually get over it. Eventually find another job. And eventually they are able to fix their finances so they're not going to lose their house, right? You need to reach out to the people that laid off so that you know the truth. Ask them, how are you doing? And if they say I'm okay, you say, you don't have to lie to me. Tell me what's happening. Eventually they'll open up and say, it actually sucked. I cried for 3 days, or I cried for 3 weeks. Actually, that happened to me. I cried for about 3 months. Even though it was my choice, I think it was the 5th wave of layoffs in our office. I was done. I was done after number 3. After the 3rd layoff, or coming up to the 3rd layoff, I packaged my office. And I put sticky notes on boxes. This goes to Mary, and this goes to Mohammed, and this goes to Amrit, right? That way I could feel emotionally comfortable that people could take over my projects and be fine. So I packed my office knowing that the layoffs were going to be next week, because they happen on the same months every year for 3 years. As long as they were away from summer and away from Christmas, they were in between Christmas and summer, or in between summer and the next Christmas. So we knew when the layoffs were coming. 3rd layoff, I prepared and packed my office. Next morning, I'm waiting for the phone call and nothing happens. And then by 11 o'clock, they call a group meeting. The group meeting was the people that survived. So that was the meeting, the survivor meeting. And then I knew I wasn't laid off. My first reaction was disappointment. Oh, I survived again. Like, literally, that's what your brain goes through. I survived again. I did not unpack my office. I left the office exactly the way it was, and I just worked with my basic papers, and I would just get them out of the box and put them back in the box for the next 6 months, waiting for the next layoff. Again, I survived. By then, you are praying, please, somebody pick me. I want to get out of here. And I'm going to talk about managers, because if you're a boss, if any of you in the audience is a boss, you suffer almost double, because you know what's happening. There's almost like a curtain that you have access to. You can see what's happening behind the curtain. And you have to come out of the curtain in front of your team and lie. So you get almost double the pain when you're a survivor, because you're a boss. So please reach out to the people that were laid off and get the truth. How are you doing? Did they give you any money? Are you okay for rent? Did they treat you with respect? All of these ideas that people have about being laid off, ask them so that you can feel at least that the person is okay. So that's the first strategy. I hope you're writing this down. Reach out to the people laid off. Next one, next step. Continue doing your good work. You have to keep at it. Continue doing the good work. Continue. You have to. There's more work now because the people are gone. And you don't want to get fired, so you have to continue doing the good work. Plus, your boss will appreciate it. I used to be a boss at this pipeline company, and my team was working just as hard or harder just to maintain the department going, right? I totally appreciated that. I totally did. So continue doing your good work. For the next step, step 3, explore future job opportunities. You're the survivor. This time, before the next layoff, explore job opportunities. I need you to expand your world, because you have to be ready. Ready with the button, right? The second they lay you off, boom, you call that person and say, I'm ready. I'm coming to you. Or you quit the company before they lay you off. We have also therapy. Please consider workplace counseling. It's paid for by your company. You're the survivor, you still have benefits. Go to workplace counseling, go to therapy. They will tell you, they will walk with you through the steps of overcoming this guilt and at least getting ready for the future. So please consider workplace counseling. For the managers in the room, out of 25 of you, I think there's going to be at least 3 bosses. That's usually the rate. At least 3 or 4 bosses in this workshop. Good managers manage the workers' feelings either way. You manage the workers' feelings either way. If they are going to be laid off, manage their feelings. If they're going to survive and stay, manage their feelings. Both groups are suffering. You're suffering too, so bosses have to go to therapy too. What happens to personal productivity when the boss is involved? So if your boss is open, easy to talk to, so there's a lot of visibility, approachability, you can talk to them anytime you want to, and candor means honesty, authenticity. When a team has gone through a layoff and their boss is considered high in visibility, high in approachability, and high in candor, authenticity, honesty, the percent of productivity lost is smaller. It's now 25%. So 25% feel that the productivity has gone down, but the majority feels that it stays the same. And even more feel that it has improved. As long as your boss is talking to you, explaining things to you, supporting you, telling you the truth as much as they can, because sometimes it's a contractual barrier, you feel better dealing with the post-layoff guilt. That's the image at the top, the bar graph at the top. The bottom one is when the boss or the manager is the opposite. The opposite of high visibility, the opposite of high approachability, the opposite of high candor. They're almost mean about it. Almost mean about it. They're probably laughing at the people that got laid off. And you feel worse. So the productivity goes down almost to 90% drop. Or 90% declare that the productivity has actually dropped. Stay the same, very little, and improve that 1%, that magical 1% that always hangs around. There is a case here for training our managers and supervisors, directors, vice presidents, CEOs to be more open, more visible, more approachable, and more candid, more honest. Managers who survive layoffs suffer both ways. They feel, they know they are the cause of the layoff, and they're also an employee who survived, right? If you think a manager doesn't feel that they're the cause of the layoff, think again. They probably had to pick. They were told, pick one. We're cutting one. Who are you going to pick? They had to make the decision. Who am I cutting from the group? Sometimes they actually have to choose themselves, or they're given a list. Choose from these two. So they feel both the pain both ways, the cost of the layoff and also the other employees who survived. Secrecy, the secrecy that is in the office is a killer, because you're not supposed to tell people that you're getting laid off. The letter says, do not tell anyone that you got laid off. So they have to walk back to their office, get their jacket, get their purse or their bag, and say nothing. They cannot start telling people, goodbye, I'm getting laid off, goodbye. They're not allowed to. So that goodbye never happens. That's a terrible, terrible thing. What happens in an office when secrecy is the culture? The impact is terrible. People don't like keeping secrets. One, we're worried that we're gonna blab and say it, tell the secret out loud. Second, we feel guilty that we're hiding something from somebody and it is affecting their life. So the secrecy adds to the stress of being a layoff survivor. Depression, anxiety, lower relationship satisfaction, poor physical health. Our body is a thermometer. If your body's sick all the time, maybe you should check your emotions. Maybe you should check your emotional health, because the emotions are completely tied to the physical health. When you have to go see the people that were laid off, you're going to ask them, what were the benefits? What package of benefits were you given when you were laid off? So I call the initials MEC. You have to ask about the MEC. Those are the typical layoff package benefits that people are given when they're laid off. Knowing the benefits package, the things that people are given when they're laid off, can help you reduce your guilt and anxiety. Yeah. So ask. If you're not laid off, ask the person that was laid off, what did they give you? I need to know that you're okay. So the M, money. Layoff pay varies between 1 month of pay and 1 year of pay, depending on how many years they've been in the company. So maybe they won't tell you how much money they got, but they're gonna say, I got about a month of pay, or 6 months of pay, or a year of pay. That gives them the security before they find their job. So that's the first package of safety. Extended health, the E. Sometimes the health coverage is extended past their layoff, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. So they're not completely losing their benefits package. It's extended a little bit, and then eventually it stops. I'm just saying that ask Maybe your friend is getting extended help and you don't have to worry so much about what they're going through. The final is the C, counseling. There is counseling available to laid off employees or contractors or consultants. There is counseling as part of the benefits package of the extended health of the organization, and because they have extended health coverage, they get counseling. Especially counseling for layoff. So they get support on job searches, they get support for therapists, they get support for counselors. Knowing MEC will help you overcome the guilt because they're okay. That's the whole point. They might be okay actually, and you don't know that. You imagine the worst. All right, the last step, and then we're gonna go on a Q&A. How to manage your career while waiting for the next wave of layoffs. I know for a fact that there's 3 people in the room who have survived 7 layoffs, 8 waves of layoffs, and they're still working. Mental toughness to the highest degree. To the highest degree. I left my pipeline job almost 6 years ago. They're still there. They're still working, and we're still going through layoffs. Even now, again, the price of oil is down back to 54, I think, dollars per barrel, not the 62 that makes us happy. So we're gonna have layoffs again. So how to manage your career now that you know this could happen? You need to get over the fear. I know the fear is constant. I know the fear never ends, that you're gonna be laid off next time, tomorrow, next week, next month, next 6 months, next year. This is adding more stress to your already terrible experience of being a layoff survivor. Please listen to what I'm saying. I've been on both sides. I've been on the side of surviving at least 4 waves of layoffs, and I took the 5th and I left. And I've been on the other side. I actually left. I took the package and I left. A very different experience, actually. When you are willing to be laid off, you want somebody to ask you. You want somebody to say, we're taking volunteers. I would have raised my hand. I want to volunteer. Can I get out of here? I'm done. I'm done with this war zone. I'm done with saying goodbye to people. I'm done stalking people on LinkedIn to find out if they got a job. I used to do that. I used to go to LinkedIn and go, where's my friend now? Because I was scared to call them. Like, this is how scared you are. You don't want to call them, you don't want to bother them. So you go to LinkedIn and you find out their job status. And when they got a job, then you call them, because now you don't feel so bad anymore, right? They have a job. I used to do that. I was done. After that 3rd and 4th wave of layoffs, I was praying for a package. And when it finally came, I took the package. And it is different. It's different when you make the choice as opposed to people taking your beautiful job away, right, against your wishes. I still cried for 3 months because I lost my identity. Remember I told you about, you lose your job, you lose your identity. You lose your job, you lose money, but you also lose who you are. I showed up at the office of the workplace counselor in tears. And I said, I need to see somebody right now. And I was bubbling like I was, and then they say, okay, we have somebody, you have to wait 45 minutes, you can see somebody. So I finally go inside, and the lady goes, how can I help you? And I started bawling, and I couldn't breathe. You know when you're crying so hard that you can't breathe? Because your throat closes up. She waited for me to stop crying, and she goes, Claudia, what's wrong? And I said, I took the package, I'm laid off technically. I quit. And she goes, you quit? So you chose? And I go, yeah. But why are you crying? You chose it. And I go, but. I'm trying to explain my feelings, right? 16 years in the same office with the same awesome people and doing the same awesome job, it's like a divorce. I don't know if any of you have experience with divorce or your parents got divorced. That horrible sensation that your life is over, that's what I had. I was divorcing from my employer. as if the whole company was a husband. I was feeling lost. And after a few minutes of me talking and the counselor asking me questions, she goes, okay, Claudia, would you like your job back? Would you like to have that job back? The one that you took away, would you like to have it back? And in that second, I stopped crying. No, thank you. No, thank you. And she goes, you're cured. You're cured. Go home. I stopped crying. In that second, I stopped crying. Why? Because I don't want that job back. I was very happy to hand over the credit card with the expenses. I was very happy to return the cell phone, my BlackBerry that was stuck to my hip for 16 years. I was so happy to give up that BlackBerry. That BlackBerry had probably 100 to-do items for projects because I was a supervisor, right? So I was helping people manage projects. I had to give up that list of to-do items to the HR person. It was like so clear. I don't want the job back. Can I have the people back? Can I have the office back, the culture, the camaraderie, the supporting each other in projects? Can I have that back? But I couldn't. So, nope, I don't want the job back. And that's when she said, you're cured. So, I need you to consider this. If you're sick of it, of the layoffs, consider volunteering to be laid off. Consider it. You can be mentally ready for it, you get the layoff money, and you get to hunt for another job and say goodbye properly. Do you know that these are the things you need to do to prepare for a future job? Awareness. Will the layoffs continue? Price of oil needs to be at least $62 a barrel. 6.2. If it's less than that, layoffs are coming. You need discovery. Any safe jobs out there? Any jobs that I can have that are not affected by the price of oil? I'm a teacher now, a university teacher. I'm pretty safe from the price of oil. Yeah. Yeah. I get affected eventually, but it takes years for teachers to get affected by the price of oil. Evaluation. What jobs can you do? I was a pipeline project manager and a pipeline supervisor. Now I teach pipeline construction. Perfect. What jobs can you do? Intent. Who can I call to find jobs? You have LinkedIn. You should be contacting all your network. I need a job. You should make a deal with your boss too. Can your boss make a deal with you? Raise your salary, change your job, change your location, or give you the layoff package, right? If none of those things work, jump. When can I get out of here? Those are your steps for exploring for future jobs. Awareness, discovery, evaluation, intent, deal, jump. You need to stop fearing losing your job. You should become an expert at losing your job. I don't know how that would work, but become an expert at it. Do it properly. That fear of getting laid off, you have savings. I have 10 jobs that want me in their office right now. My dad, my aunt, my uncle will give me a job. Just be cool about it. That will reduce your layoff survivor syndrome. You know who got laid off and was happy about it? Lady Gaga. I love it that I get to show Lady Gaga's photo. Thank you for firing me. Lady Gaga was dropped by her first music label, and she said it hurt for a little bit, and then I was happy because they were not fulfilling my dream of the songs I wanted to sing and the things I wanted to do with my videos. So she was actually happy to be laid off. In fact, after that, she sort of opened her own company. So she does not depend as much on music companies. She can make her own music. She was probably saying, thank you for laying me off. There, that's the end of our presentation. We cover, let me go back. We cover the feelings of being laid off. consequences of that guilt and help you manage your career, because you have to be proactive now. You're not gonna be the opposite of Lady Gaga. You have to be ready, like Lady Gaga, right? Please attend WES 2024. It's on June 7, 2024. Go to our website. We are going to have more sessions like this one with great speakers. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. We can open the Q&A now, Amo.